Hello ladies, today it's time for another review of My Hero Academia, and this time it's chapter 159. Now we've been waiting 2 weeks for this chapter, and I can just say already, this chapter was absolutely great. I have nothing to complain about really. So obviously it started out with, Tamaki and the others finding Aizawa pretty much, and I think this was a really nice touch because we haven't really seen Tamaki do anything as of lately, and we see how he just pulls out his fucking swordfish. Granted, if someone were to pull a swordfish on me, I'd probably not be very terrified, I'd probably not even be intimidated at all, but Horikoshi didn't forget about his swordfish, and that's what's important. And so obviously Chronostasis is now captured because of that, because Tamaki didn't come alone. I mean, he did come with the police. Even if Tamaki was alone, I think Chronostasis would have been wiped out because Tamaki is a beast, okay? But I mean, he didn't have to because the police were with him. So yeah, after that we actually see how Tamaki meets up with Tsuyo, and she explains the whole situation with Night Eye, I guess, and Ochako. But I found it really funny how Tamaki actually called her Ribbit Girl or something like that, which just goes to show you, that she's definitely a fucking frog girl. Like, there's no going around that. Tamaki just goes right away, like, yo, Ribbit Girl. And I think that's that puts Tsuyo's character into perspective in some sense, I guess. Deku and Eri, now they were having some problems after the fight with Overhaul, and this is what I actually wanted to happen, because I knew that Eri being in control of Deku being able to use all of his power, it's not gonna last forever, and when it runs out, something bad is going to go down, because it really does come down to who cancels their quirk first. And we see this kind of happen because Deku kinda just fucking runs out of power and his body just goes fucking nuclear, and Eri cannot stop her quirk. Like, she is trying, but she doesn't know how to control it at all. I mean, she can use it, but then she doesn't know how to stop using it. This is kind of like what Deku was saying like a couple of chapters back, I think, that yeah, she can use her quirk, but can she stop it? Can she cancel it? And she cannot. And fortunately for them, Aizawa actually came out and helped them out, because they couldn't do it without anyone's help. And so Aizawa, I think, cancels out Eri's quirk. As far as I understand, it was Eri's quirk. It could have been Deku, because he does say Deku, but it does look like Eri's falling down. Someone may be able to correct me in the comments, I don't know. I mean, it's all down to interpretation really, I guess, but either way, it doesn't really matter who he cancelled out, because the important part here is that, they're safe. I mean, they were out cold for a moment, but they're definitely safe. And speaking of which, Overhaul, his mask came off, and I believe this was a really interesting thing, because in the past, some people have been speculating, oh, okay, what does he look like underneath that mask? Like, does he have a really hideous face? Is that why he's wearing a mask? And this chapter we find out that no, he does not look like a hideous fucking monster underneath his mask. He does look like your average man would. I mean, he looks a bit plain, not gonna lie, but he definitely doesn't look very special. There's nothing hideous going on, there's no pretty boy. He's just some guy, basically. So, Night Eye. Now, this man is something that I want to talk about, because in the past, well, the past couple of chapters at least, people have been saying, Night Eye is going to die, and if he doesn't die, then the story is shit and shit like that. But he's alive now. He's barely alive, but he is alive. I don't really mind this at all. I mean, sure, I would probably have preferred it if he had died because of the injury that he was getting. Like, he had his fucking pillar of stone through his chest, and I think that should have killed him, honestly. But at the same time, I'm really not bothered that he is alive, because I mean, death does not necessarily make a writing good. You don't have to kill off characters to make it good. Now, I really hope he has some sort of permanent damage, like his arm that was kind of like being cut off. I really hope that stays off. I mean, if it doesn't, then that's probably gonna be a bit of a question to ask, like, how did he get his arm back? Unless he has a prosthetic arm, of course, which is fine, but if he has his real arm, then that's gonna be something that I will question. Anyway, so with Night Eye, he had his vision of Deku, dying, and him dying as well. And he's never experienced that anyone before him has ever defied these visions. Like, he's always used to they coming true. There's never been any sort of different result, I guess. And for the first time, Deku was able to completely warp that. He twisted the future for the first time, I guess, because we have these panels of, I guess, Night Eye saying to himself that, oh, you were able to do it, which means that, well, it sounds to me like it's the first time it's happened, and if it is, then that's really going to have some sort of an impact on Night Eye's character. character, especially if we're gonna see him in the future. Not sure if we will. I mean, I imagine we will, given that, you know, Deku's internship is with Night Eye and Mirio Togadas. So yeah, I do expect him to be a recurring character, especially given what Deku was telling him about All Might, because he was saying that, you know, oh, you need to stay alive because you need to see All Might again. And I think that's something that I want to see. I want to see, you know, Night Eye and All Might having some kind of reunion, because they haven't met each other for a long time. I mean, they know of each other, obviously they know of each other because they worked together in the past, but something happened between them, and now that Night Eye nearly died, I think, like Deku said, it's a really good thing if they actually go out to meet each other. Because imagine if one of them dies, right? Because we know Night Eye, he is predicted that All Might is gonna die, for instance. And if that happens, and Night Eye hasn't gone to meet him in who the fuck knows how many years, right? That is going to remain on Night Eye's consciousness for a long time. And if, you know, Night Eye dies, then that's going to be bad for All Might probably, because All Might is also responsible for not having met Night Eye, you know, ever since whenever they last met. It's not just Night Eye that has to make sure that they meet, you know, All Might has to agree to it as well. And neither of them have met. Well, I guess neither of them has probably even suggested to meet in the past, ever since they separated. Lastly, I want to talk about Shigaraki and Dabi, because we had this panel at the very end, of course, with, you know, Shigaraki questioning, you know, is this how shogi works? Do you just defeat the king of the enemy team? And Dabi explains, you know, it's a little more complex than that. And so I think that is kind of hinting towards what we're going to be getting right now in the story of My Hero Academia. I think that Shigaraki, Dabi, Mr. Compress, probably Togen twice as well, are going to try and fetch Overhaul from that ambulance, because we know that Toga wants to make Overhaul cry for his mommy, and Shigaraki probably wants to mess with Overhaul even more. Like, he probably wants to be the one to kill him, he wants to just off him, but before he does that, he probably want to make sure that, you know, Overhaul has suffered enough, because he killed Magni, you know, one of Shigaraki's men. I think that's going to be a factor in how they're going to be treating Overhaul if they actually manage to capture him, which they might not, but they could also do that. I mean, it depends on the kind of defenses that these ambulances are having, and if, you know, the heroes are getting reinforcements or whatnot, because we don't know how strong Dabi is. We know Toga isn't very strong, but she's fucking fast. I mean, she's an assassin, let's be honest. Then there's Twice, who can copy people, I guess, which could be strong, could be weak, you know, it depends on who he decides to, you know, make a copy of. And then there's Mr. Compress, who can compress things, which not entirely sure on that quirk, to be honest, so I'm not really gonna talk too much about it. But then there's Shigaraki, his quirk is fucking deadly. Now, if he touches you, you know, you're basically just gonna fucking die, and that's, I mean, that's bad news for you if he touches you for an extended amount of time. I mean, Aizawa got first-hand experience of what his quirk does. Granted, he didn't die because it wasn't a very long time exposure, and Shigaraki probably didn't want to kill him. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, are we going to be getting, you know, mostly pro heroes fighting these guys, or is it going to be the same crew that we actually had this arc, you know, Tamaki, Deku, Kirishima, Ochako, Suyo, and the others. Now, some of them are badly injured, so I really don't see all of them participating if that is the case, which is why I'm kind of thinking that we're gonna get a lot of different people doing this. At least some of the people are gonna be swapped out. I mean, Deku is probably going to be relevant. I mean, he's the main character, it makes sense that he will be, but some of the others might not be. I mean, that's just me thinking rationally, you know, you can't just have, you know, Kirishima, who's pretty much fucking dead or some shit. I mean, I don't even know what's going on with him. He's been lying in that bed for so long, like, he took a serious fucking beating. So I just don't see him being part of it. Ochako, however, might be part of this, and this could be a moment where we see some kind of a connection with her and Toga, if Toga is part of this. Because what I want to see is Toga and Ochako having some sort of rivalry, you know, like a hero and villain rivalry. Like, we may get this parallel between the heroes of Class 1A and their League of Villains. We might get some, you know, all of the students may have someone in the league that they will have to fight against, and this could be, you know, Ochako fighting against Toga kind of thing. I really want to see that, to be honest, but I don't really know if I see it happening already. That's kind of the thing, because the story's barely begun, you know, so it could happen much later if it even happens at all. Anyway, so I don't really have anything else to add about this chapter, so I'm going to end the video here. And if this review seems a bit different from my usual reviews, it's because I haven't scripted this at all. I'm just talking right from my heart. I don't usually do that because I really cannot think of anything to say, but I'm short on time today, so that's why. Anyway, so with that said, be sure to leave a comment about this video, and If you did, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new to my channel. This has been your favorite host Perm, and I will see you next time.